Welcome back to another week of For the Love of Dogs. I'm Arthur Benjamin with Farah White, and we're here today with Bandit, and we're here today with a great guest and his dog, Bawindi.
Yes, we're very lucky today to have Skip Trimble with us. He is a leading animal welfare advocate, and he's here to discuss some of the top animal rights making headlines these days. Welcome to the show, Skip.
Thanks, my pleasure.
Thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be here.
Well, when I moved to Texas about, it's got to be close to 10 years ago, and I went to the first dog event. There was a man that I had to meet, and he's still a man that you have to meet. It was the famous and loved Skip Trimble, and I got a chance to meet him, and we've known each other on and off since, and I've kept my eye on the incredible work he does, and we're going to talk all about it today.
Nice. Yeah, I know some of it's not going to be pleasant, but let's see, what should we talk about first? You want to talk about?
Well, I think the hot topic of the day is probably puppy mills. The plight that dogs that live in those puppy mills have, and the kind of lives that they have are really, the way I put it, really don't have much of a life. And so we've made some progress here in Texas. In the last legislative session, they passed a bill to regulate puppy mills and to hopefully bring them into standards that would be healthy and better for the well-being of the animals that live their entire lives in those facilities. Unfortunately, the legislature turned a lot of the standard rulemaking over to the department that's to enforce the law, and the standards that they adopted were much, much less stringent and much more lenient than we had hoped that they would be. There were really 4 or 5 particular areas in which we were very disappointed. One was cage sizes. And maybe if we have time a little later on, I'll kind of show you how small a cage can be and still be in compliance with the regulations. It actually gives the dog 3 inches on either side, not even measuring his tail.
You know what? Let's do that now.
Yeah.
Well, if you'd like to see it, this is...
While we're talking about it.
As you can tell, I'm an animal welfare advocate and an attorney. I'm certainly not a designer, but I think this will help kind of show what we're facing here. What we have is this is kind of color coordinated. Now, Wendy, you don't go in a cage like that, so you just sit still. The formula for sizes for the cages under the regulations is you measure the dog from the tip of his nose to the base of his tail, not the end of his tail, but the tail that connects to his body. So no matter how long the tail is, it doesn't even count. And you add 6 inches. And then that's the square that becomes the primary enclosure, and they can spend as much as 23 hours a day, 7 days a week there. So I used an example of a dog that is 18 inches from tip of nose to base of tail. And I couldn't find a dog that would sit still, so I used this PVC pipe. And this PVC pipe is 18 inches, and the white on this demonstration is the cage size that is allowed by the current regulations. So let's set this here, and you see how that dog would live 23 hours a day, 7 days a week. And to turn around, look what has to happen for him to turn around.
And if the tail is long, it gets broken.
Again, does not count a tail.
Wow.
So this is for all tail docs. And that brings up another interesting subject that we'll talk about a little later. But what we recommend is to double the cage size. And that is still not a lot. I mean, the breeders just thought that was the worst penalty that they could ever, it would put them out of business and all that sort of stuff. But it's just pretty simple. It still doesn't give the dog a lot of space, but at least it allows him to do normal postural movements. Because here's the other thing that people don't realize. When a lot of dogs, when they lie down, they sply. And they put these legs back and these forward. You won't be able to do that in this in this enclosure. Just won't happen. So that's one of the things we were disappointed about. Another one, which this tail docking reminded me of, is we wanted that procedures that these breeders do to make their dogs more fashionable. There's 3 or 4 things they do. They dock their tails, they crop their ears, oftentimes they will debark them, and they'll declaw them. So let's be honest. Docking a tail, cropping the ears, and declawing are amputations. Correct, as is debarking. They have to go in and clip the vocal cord. Well, what we said is, look, if they're going to do that, let's at least require that be done by a licensed veterinarian. They said no. This was recommended by the committee that studied this, that it be a veterinarian do this. No. So this can be done
and they
by
do it without
the breeder.
pain meds a lot of the time.
There's no requirement for pain medicine. Now the vet would have a requirement because their standards require it. But so that was a disappointing thing for us, very disappointing. The other is the current regulations allow 100% wire flooring on the floor. So we can use this. This dog would be here and he would be standing on wire his or her entire life.
A lot of the dogs are small. This Bandit's a fairly good-sized dog, but that's a small paw. That will fit right through the hole in a kennel, and then they catch it halfway down and get there.
And then the other things that it does is because their paw doesn't go flat, it goes out, their toenails grow long and curve underneath. So, when a dog walks, he or she is actually filing their nails.
Right.
But if they don't have a solid surface to do that on, then the nails continue to grow.
And if they're in a puppy mill, they don't get their nails clipped.
Right. No, there's no nail clip. So what we had proposed is that we at least require that half of the floor be a solid floor so they could get off of the wiring at some point in time to lie down or to make some sort of postural adjustment and so forth. Again, that was not passed. That recommendation was not followed.
So today in Texas, we have dogs living in puppy mills that are living in that level of space on wire floors with long nails that are not being clipped without the veterinary services that they need when their tails are docked, their ears are cropped, or the digits are amputated to get rid of a nail.
That's right.
Or vocal cords clipped, probably by a pair of hair clippers.
So how does the average person allow this to continue?
Well, the average person wouldn't. The average person isn't aware of this. And they see these, what's strange is when I was making my argument or presentation to the commission, I said, before we talk about these cages, let's talk about what's caged in these cages. We're not dealing with chickens, we're not dealing with pigs or goats or things like that. We're dealing with the very, very animals that sleep with us, our children play with. We spend thousands of dollars to groom them and take them to the vets. They go on vacations with them. They're a member of our family.
Yeah.
Well, their family member, namely their mother, is living here. So you take a dog like this, wonderful dog, a dog like Bandit, their mother, if they came from a puppy mill, their mother's the same as them. She produced that dog, but she's living like this, and he's living with Benjamin, with Bandit and with Arthur.
Bandit and Benjamin. It's a new movie.
Right.
It is.
So that's the kind of things that we're looking at. Also, these breeders are in it for a profit, and a lot of business will cut things to make a profit, and I guess that's okay if you cut something for a profit if it isn't something that's a living sentient being. So we need to have some minimum standards of care for these animals and require them to do these sorts of things. And
what can the average person do to make a difference?
well, I think the first thing that I would recommend is look when you're looking for a pet, you're looking for a dog or a cat, look at the shelters. We have wonderful, wonderful animals in those shelters, many of which came from the same place that the dog that you would go get. And some of those dogs, the reason we get them is they have problems with socialization because they've never been touched by a human, many of them. We also have genetic problems. They also come sick, and you pay $400 or $500 for a dog, then you get to pay another $2,000 to have all the veterinary procedures done. So I would say adopt if you can. And we have a slogan that is pretty resonant. If you buy, another dog will die. Because you could go to the shelter and save that dog. But if you go buy a dog. Now, if for whatever reason you have your mind set, the public wants a specific type of dog, they need to check. There are all sorts of specific, breed-specific rescue groups. You can find any breed you want. There will be a rescue group that has those types of dogs. And you
Boxer rescue, or Australian Shepherd rescue, Shih Tzu
Cocker
rescue.
Spaniel, you name it, they've got it. And I always tell people, if you'll give me 3 weeks, you tell me what kind of dog you want, and I'll find what you want.
Absolutely.
They're out there. You don't have to go. Now, you want a puppy and you want to go buy a dog. Don't go to a pet store. You have no earthly idea where those dogs originated. If you want to buy from a breeder, there are reputable breeders out there. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that when you buy that dog, you go see the mother. You find out where the mother lives, the father, the conditions that they live in. And many of them, right there, you'll screen them out, because most of the time they won't let you go to those facilities.
Now,
they want to meet you on the Walmart parking lot, or they want to meet you at a Denny's restaurant, and they'll bring the puppy there. Say, no, I would like to come to your place and see how my dog that's going to live with me forever, I want to know how his mother is living.
And when you go to an internet site, you also never know where that real breeder is.
Right, right. He could be anywhere. And shipping puppies is a very, very stringent thing on the puppy. They are put in an airline crate, or and it's just, transportation of puppies is not safe. And so they'll sometimes ship them at a very, very early age. We did get the bill to say that they can't sell or transport a puppy under 8 weeks of age. But for some puppies, that's still very, very young. Some breeds, that's very, very young.
Sure. Now, when will legislation come back up to where people could have an opportunity to try to get more awareness for these things,
Right.
to try to...
Well, in Texas, it's every other year in the odd-numbered years, so it'll be in 2013. But what's unfortunate is that the legislature did their job, and the much legislation that deals with specific industries, they will say these industries need to be regulated, but how to regulate them, we want the agency that has the expertise and can study it and take comments and do research to determine what the best regulations are. And that's where we feel that the Department of Licensing and Regulation fell short this time. And so we want to keep bringing to them the problems that their current regulations are allowing to happen. And do that, I think, probably in lieu of trying to change a bill, because the legislature, by their own admittance, says, we don't know everything to do, but we want you to set minimum standards for these animals.
And let's talk about the size. American Dog Rescue in the last 18 months has funded 3 puppy mill rescues, 2 through the Humane Society of the United States, 1 through the Animal Rescue Corps. And in each of those, there were well over 300 dogs. In the case of the one in Texas last year, there were 550 dogs.
550.
And you've got 550 dogs living in those conditions, turning out 4 to 6 litters a year?
More like 2 to 3, but still. And the fact is, it depends on the breed, but a lot of breeds their litter is 12. So you can see why we have a
those numbers multiply, and if you look at the number of dogs that come out of puppy mills and the number of dogs that are euthanized in the United States, The numbers almost match exactly.
Right. There's 3.5 million dogs every year euthanized, and they're not euthanized because they're sick, injured, or whatever. They're euthanized because there's no homes for them.
Yeah.
And so if we can, the puppy mill industry is a part of a bigger problem that we refer to as companion animal overpopulation. We just have more than there's homes for. If we absorbed all the animals in loving homes that we have, each home, family of 4, would have 28 animals.
Wow.
Now that's it's unmaintainable. I mean,
Sure.
we can't do it. So we have to cut down on the supply.
So how do we do that?
Well, we do it through regulation. We do it through education, so people will know what they are enabling when they buy from breeders and buy through puppy outlets. We need to control the breeding, and we do that by making the demand limited to those who are doing it right, and putting the ones who don't care about the animals, they just care about the bottom line. We need to make sure that they don't sell animals. That they're not worthy of our support.
Well, which makes sense. And I'm sure we'll have a topic of that, covering this on animaldogrescue.org. But what you had said about having 28 animals then, right, theoretically, leads us to another issue of animal hoarding.
Right.
Have you seen a lot of that?
We have seen a lot of that. And what happens is, because there are people who just cannot bear putting an animal to sleep or euthanizing an animal. And so what they do is they will oftentimes go to animal shelters. They will pick up the litters that the breeders can't sell. They will pick up dogs and cats on the street. But what happens is it's a disease. It's not a crime, it's truly a disease. My brother-in-law is a psychiatrist, and I got him interested in this, and I found that one of the amazing things about it is this is one of the few, we can call it diseases, or we can call it addictions, that has 100% recidivity. It can't be cured. So you can take all of a hoarder's animals away, and that hoarder will start hoarding again. They're really basically uncurable. So what they do is they get these animals, and they never try to find them homes. They think anybody that would come to get them would not be worthy of them, and they just keep collecting and collecting and collecting until they're living with 80, 90 dogs in a house, and the condition, they become blinded to the conditions that are there. And I would have to say, on many of these, both puppy mills and hoarders, when we seize these, Texas has a law that will allow the civil seizure of cruelly treated animals. But most of the time when that happens, a large percentage of the animals that are taken have to be put to sleep. They're too far gone. They can't, their health and condition is so bad that the only humane thing to do is to euthanize them. That's how bad these facilities are.
Is it illness? Is it sickness? Are they malnourished? Is it a combination?
All of the above.
Yeah.
You name it, they will have it. And then, you then have the other thing is the socialization. I mean, they've had to fight for every bite of food they've had. They have no privacy for going to the bathroom. So, you have to spend a lot of time to get them healthy, and you have to spend a lot of time getting them what we call adoption ready.
Sure.
Because the last thing that adopters and rescue people like ourselves want to do is to place a dog in a home that it doesn't work. We want the adopter to be happy.
Sure.
Because a happy adopter means a happy animal.
Yes.
So it's kind of like being a matchmaker. You want to make sure that they both are happy and it works. And not all of them work. And
right.
our hope is that when they don't work, they come back to us and we'll find a different dog that will work for them.
Right.
But a lot of people then will just take that dog to a shelter, and so you just have the thing starting over again.
But it's nice because people who are happy then talk to other people, and then
Right.
more people adopt by word of mouth. So
Exactly.
Yeah, and that brings us to a
Exactly.
really good appeal. And that's, if you rescue a dog from a shelter and the dog doesn't work for you, take it back to the shelter that you got it from, so that they know the history and they can make a good adoption. It wasn't for you. Don't be embarrassed, and take it to somewhere else where the dog's going to wind up being put down.
And when I adopt out my own, I rescue dogs and adopt them out, and the first thing that I say is, if this isn't working, I want to be the first to know. I want you to bring it back to me, because I will know how to find an owner it works with. Don't you try to adopt it out to somebody. Let me do it, and I'll find you a dog that's suitable for you. And that's what nearly all rescues, organized or unorganized, like I am. But that's
You're the most organized guy I know.
Well,
You're pretty organized.
I don't have much of an organization, just my wife and I, and it's just how many can we take at one time?
Yeah.
Well, you do wonders both on the legislative front and in that kindness of heart of you and your wife.
Well, the one thing, as far as legislation, I would like to make a little pitch for the organization. I'm with the Texas Humane Legislation Network, and the acronym for that is THLN. And if you go to our website, which is THLN.org, we can show you all of the laws that we've passed. And passing laws is certainly not near as rewarding as saving a dog and cuddling a cat, but the number of animals that it affects positively is enormous. A perfect example is that on our next legislative agenda will be to pass a bill to prohibit the gassing of animals as a means of euthanizing them. Well, we have stopped everything but sodium pentobarbital, which is good in gassing.
Yeah.
But even now, there's thousands of them. So there's thousands that suffer through this.
That's horrible. Well, and we should be aware of it. You can find out more actually about the Animal Legal Defense Fund online at www.aldf.org. Skip, thank you so much for being with us.
You're more than welcome.
And stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Well, welcome back to the Love of Dogs, and we're going to talk a little bit about an exciting show that you have to tune in for next week.
Yes, it's called Paws for People is actually the name of the organization.
It was started by a young woman who we hope will be with us, and her dad, who's a Vietnam vet.
And it's Paws for People, so
yes,
it's the number four.
The number four, Paws for People, Paws for Vets. .org, all.org, and at 12 years old, she realized her dad, who was a Vietnam vet with his own challenges, would be helped by a dog, and she started Paws for People, and they now train hundreds of dogs for our soldiers coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan with PTSD and military sexual trauma disorder, MST, and they train service dogs, and they go to them or they go to youth under 14 years of old who have challenges like cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy. And these dogs are mostly golden retrievers, but they from their own breed, but they also take from shelters, labs, German shepherds, dogs that have the propensity to be trained. And they either go to what they call a companion animal, which is known as a hero assistance dog for our troops, or a rescue assistance dog for the youth, and then they can go on and train further. And uniquely, this is an amazing organization. They use the prison system to train the dogs. So they do the training in prisoners with prisoners, and Those programs have yet, that I know of, to have any prisoner returned to prison. They have a 0 recidivism rate.
See, which is amazing, and it makes perfect sense that if you give a prisoner something to do and let them see love and let them deal with an animal, then they are accomplishing something.
And they leave prison with a skill.
They're giving back, yeah, and they leave with a skill, absolutely.
And so the prisoners train dogs, which help kids and our military, which they go on then to graduate from prison, don't come back, go out and become animal trainers, and they have an organization they become part of as well called a Dog Wizard, that they go out and work with the Dog Wizard and learn how to run a business and start training facilities in different parts of the country.
That's
so
brilliant.
It is really fascinating because it's sort of like when you go to Africa and you see the animals and there's no waste. There's no waste in this program, and they're using the low-cost labor of the prisons to do training of dozens of dogs at a time. And we just put 2 of the dogs we brought back from Afghanistan last week from Nowzad Dog Rescue in Afghanistan, put them into the prison program in Georgia, and they're being trained as either hero assistance dogs or service dogs, depending on how far they can go. But these are the friends of our troops, the wild dogs of Afghanistan, who became friends of our troops and got left behind. And 2 of those dogs have actually made it into the program. So we're hopeful more of them will.
Yes, that's so great. And what a great story. And to think that all of this originated in the mind of a 12-year-old little girl.
And she's 24 now and runs the organization and keeps her dad in line, who's more like my age. And he actually does a lot of the work and he does a lot of the organization, but she's actually a adjunct professor at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and they have their own program. That's another unique feature. They have their own program which trains college students how to train dogs and use them in their professions. So professions like psychology, social worker, therapy, they include the dogs forever. And if they go 4 semesters, they get their own service dog to use in their profession.
That's incredible. So, and it's 3 organizations have stemmed out of that. It's Paws for the number of people, Paws for vets, and Paws for prison. So .org, all of those are .org.
Terry and Kyrie Henry, an unusual name for an unusual young woman, will be with us next week.
Well, I can't wait to meet them.
Well, neither can Bandit. He's looking forward to it. Actually, I don't know. They'll have their service dogs. I don't know if Bandit is going to put up with
Bandit will be fine.
Yeah.
And you can find out more about this topic and other topics and upcoming shows on AmericanDogRescue.org. Actually covers it all. And be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, because we want your support and we know that you want to know what's going on.
Join us next week. Arthur Benjamin and Farah White. Have a great week.